I want to dig into the communication stuff because
Yeah.
when I was instructing, I would hit my, one thing that I always was worried about, and this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, but welcome to the podcast. This is what I do on the podcast. When I was an instructor, I would fight burnout, right? So we changed the minimum instructional, bill to pay essentially from 4 years to 3 years while I was there. It's a big deal. You can always extend and go further, but we found that, it was a bigger incentive to guys like, hey, you're not going to be there for 4 years. You're going to go do your time and then come back to the teams, so to speak, and you'll just go on with your life. But I was always worried about burnout, right? Short story. And I got to a point where I was explaining to guys and gals that were working there. They're like, yeah, the biggest problem is it's Groundhog Day. Dude, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the guys and girls that I would supervise, they would say, hey, I'm getting sick of repeating myself.
Yep.
It feels like I'm just saying the same stuff over and over again. They're just not getting it. And then it turns into, man, these students aren't getting it. This team is the worst team and whatever else. And I'm like, hey, hold on. You've said this, 100 times. You're right. But you've never said it to these people. You've never had this team. Like, yes, teams make the same mistakes, right? Teams forget gear somewhere. Teams don't have accountability. Teams don't tape their gear correctly. Like, there are all these things that the teams do that we're like, yeah, we got you. You do it the same, but it's not the same person. You're not wasting your time. Whatever. How do you train instructors to know the things that they're doing, especially on a repetitive basis like that? How do you get them to see the value in each interaction?
So I'm going to tell you another weird story. So I'm going to get it. I'm going to get your answer tangentially, just like you did. So I'm down with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they've asked me to come down to help them with some of their coaching stuff. I know nothing about sports, right? So I'm like, okay, but I know nothing about sports, so I'll make you a trade. I'll come down and do my best, but then I get to interview some of your graybeard coaches. And they're like, okay. So I find the most curmudgeonly guy that's been doing it for 150 years since baseball started, right? And he's over it, probably drinks whiskey in the morning with his coffee kind of a situation. Sure. So, but he's like a legend. So he meets me and he goes, I understand you want to ask me some questions about batting. And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, come on to the batter's cage. And then he goes, hey, Simmons, come with us. Simmons, making that name up, but it's like their professional pitcher. So they go to the pitching mound. He puts me in the batting cage, and I'm like, hey, just so you understand, I've held a bat since I was 12 years old. He's like, shut up. It's like,
I don't watch sports ball, my dude.
Yeah.
I don't care about this at all. Like, this is not my thing.
Yeah. And he goes, don't care. He goes, get in the thing. And he's like, show me a swing. And I was like, he's like, stop talking. Show me your swing. I'm like, okay. So he's like, drop your hips a little bit. Loosen your shoulders up. Relax. Bring it up a little bit. He does a couple of these little things. Okay. And then he says, now listen to me. I'm going to yell out to Simmons, and Simmons is going to go slowly back like his pitcher. And when he goes slowly back, you go slowly back. When he goes forward, you go forward. I don't want you to think about baseball. I don't want you to think about the ball. I want you to think about this like a dance. I want you to dance. This is like an old graybeard guy. He's like, I want you to dance with a pitcher. He goes back, you go back. He goes forward, you go forward. We're going to do that for a little bit. I was like, okay, this sounds weird. That guy said to me 15 balls. I hit 12 of them. Now, granted, he's throwing to my bat, but remember, I haven't touched a bat in 40 years. And there is a certain genius that only comes through a lot of reps. There's only a genius. That guy doesn't get there because he figured that out. He got it because he stared at thousands of people and he finally figured out some hacks. And so what I say to instructors that are saying to me, I say, look, instruction by and large is pretty boring. Just know that people watch more than they listen. So they're watching your body language and what you're doing more than they're listening to what you say. And 3, it's a kind of Zen. It's kind of martial arts. It's kind of this thing where you only get better at reps. So you have to stop thinking about it like a beginning and an end. You have to think about it in terms of craftsmanship. Like, I want to be greatest woodworker or the greatest silversmith or the greatest shooter in the world. It's the same thing. You just got to do reps. So that's my weird answer.
I love it.
Yeah. So I was going to equate what you just said to something that we have been trying to get after, like in the weapons school. So you've got all, we just talked about the Air Force has, their technology, their thing, right? And we spend a bunch of monies on planes, which is great because we need kick-ass planes.
Of course we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and we need high-end training, so we've got all these named exercises that we do that are different levels. You've got your entry level, your mid level, and then your 400 series, of doctorates level exercises. And one of the things when we're as we're starting to enter, or not starting to enter, we have been in a fiscally constrained kind of environment, resource environment, right? And, some of these exercises that we do cost an enormous amount of money. Like
Sure.
I don't even, like, it would blow people's mind, the
Like
amount of money
Operation Red Wings or something like that. Yeah.
right. And now that simulation is getting to a point where
Oh, yeah.
we can connect everybody together, we can have high-end training, we can have um, physics-based simulators, meaning it's not a guy on the other end going like, okay, well, this missile can go to 40 miles, and it's hey, physics wise, we have the data, you can't adjust it, that's what's going to happen. And the way the planes flies are all physics based instead of just kind of a computer gaming. And we can do that now, or we're getting to that point where it's getting better, where we can just do, we can have pilots, and I'll just use pilots in this case. We can have them show up. They do an hour-long mission brief, mission planning. Here's your situation. Here's what we're going to do, and they could run simulator for 45 minutes, or just over and over and over again. Quick debrief for 45 minutes, then run it another 10 times, debrief real quick, and then they can do that for a week, and they get more reps in that week than they would doing 3 months of flying.
Yep.
With high-end missiles that are, in the simulator actually shooting at them versus just kind of they've got a guy flying behind them as a opposing force saying, okay, hey, I gunned you on that one.
Yep.
It's just the repetition is so important at this point, now that we're getting to a point where we're potentially going to find ourselves in a high-end fight here real soon.
Yep. You guys are familiar with the Alt Report? That it started Top Gun and then led to Operation Red Wings. That's where it came from.
I'll check it out. ALT?
I can send it to you. It's AULT. But basically, I'm going to mess up the numbers, but you can look it up. So the quick story here, and this really matters to what you're saying, is that in the Vietnam War after Korea, in Korea, the Navy kill rate, or the Navy and Air Force kill rate in Korea was about 3-1. No, sorry, 7-1. 7 enemy shot down for every American. By Vietnam, that had dropped to 3-1. And the reason was all the World War II vets had retired. They'd fought through Korea and then retired, and it was all new pilots. And so this guy named Frank Alt, he's a Navy guy, gets hired. I think he's Navy. No, he's Air Force guy. Sorry, he worked in Nellis. He was the director of academics there. He basically writes this report, and he says, hey, guys, the reason that you're having this problem is that the first time these guys are ever in combat is combat. So we need to create a realistic training environment beforehand. The Air Force, however, says, now we're not doing that. We've met humans. We don't like them. So what we're going to do is we're going to buy our way out of it. So better radar, better missiles, that sort of thing. When they get back, it's one of the few times in history where 2 organizations facing the same problem came back with their solutions at the same time. So it's like 1971 or something. These numbers are rough. I can get you the right ones, but basically, the Navy goes something like 31-1, and the Air Force goes 0.89-1.
Oof.
And so that's why they create Operation Red Wings, is to give them physical training. So I'm going to pause there and add one more thing. There's a lot of data in sports to show that there are people that perform really well in practice and suck in performance. It's one of the things they cannot figure out. And this is a long-winded way to say that simulations are extraordinary for all the things they can do for reps, to give hand-eye coordination, all these things. There's still a cognitive dissonance between practice and play. And so you actually still need to do the physical exercises, or you're going to have the stutter step cognitive dissonance actually in combat, which you don't want.
Oh, absolutely. And that's not me making an argument that we've got to do away with live fly or something like that.
But there are people that are making that argument.
There are, it's nuts, because just because I can run a scenario to get the reputation 60 times in a week doesn't make up for the fact that I take off from Nellis. I've got to plan my fuel. I've got to plan not to hit people. I've got to deal with air traffic control sensors along the way. I've got to then fly over the water. I've got to air refuel. Then I've got to continue to go on. I need to start looking for alternate locations to land. All those other kind of what would seemingly be admin pieces
Yeah,
are some of the things that kill people before those missiles.
100%.
So you have to have that portion too. Like we've got to find a nice blend
Absolutely.
of making that work.